Court of International Trade, which is a relatively low-profile court in Manhattan. What do you make of this?
Again, he's going to have to appeal it, and then, it might end up going to the Supreme Court. And I'm going to be honest with you. I said from the get-go, I said the way that and this is what presidents do nowadays, they just really, really, really like to push the envelope when it comes to the Constitution, what's legal and what's not legal. And this most certainly was a push to declare, fentanyl, this emergency power to impose tariffs on the entire world. It's a bit of a stretch. It's a bit of a stretch to say the least. So, I don't know how much he's got to stand on when it comes to this. Hopefully that, they can move to some degree and get some deal solidified and this, get this thing over with sooner rather than later. But,
right.
No, it's not a good ruling for the presidency. But again, I'm a big fan of it. I'm a believer in the Constitution and separation of powers, even though it's becoming out of style. I think it's the way to go.
It stopped Trump's global tariffs that he imposed, citing emergency economic powers. Remember what he said that, including the Liberation Day tariffs he announced on April 2nd. It also prevents Trump from enforcing his tariffs placed earlier this year against China, Mexico, and Canada, designed to combat fentanyl coming into the United States. So he's got, there's some real hoops to jump through right here. They say the court ruled in favor of a permanent injunction, potentially grinding Trump's global tariffs to a halt. Now, we're already seeing President Trump backing up on tariffs a lot. In fact, there's a new word that's out there today called taco, where Wall Street is mocking Trump with a 4-letter code to call bets against him. And they're basically saying this idea of taco is that Trump always chickens out. Would you subscribe to that at all, Chris?
The markets are powerful things, and the bond market is the most powerful of them all. When we first had that first movement, and we talked about it, I was watching it overnight. I was like, my Lord, this is not good to see this type of movement this quickly, and how it happened. I mean, the next day, okay, we put the 90 days on. So, yeah, you have to bow down. I don't care how tough you may think you are. The markets are gonna move in a certain direction, and you better follow.
Yeah,
because it could be a disaster.
This term taco was supposed, for anybody that's keeping trivia, was supposedly first coined by Financial Times columnist Robert Armstrong. But the term has gained some traction here among investors who are profiting from what they say is a predictable pattern. And here's a predictable pattern. I wanted you to get your comment on this, Chris. Trump threatens steep tariffs. The markets plunge. Days later, he backs off in a way that prompts a rebound. And the latest example came over the weekend on Friday. President Trump sends markets reeling by announcing sweeping 50% tariffs on European imports. But by Sunday, the White House abruptly paused the move, citing a fresh round of trade talks. And when the markets respond on Tuesday, stocks surge. We see that over and over again, right?
Yeah, it's almost like it's, purposeful market manipulation to some degree. We were having conversations, and that's where the whole taco thing came out. You said, this is the trade that you need to do. The issue is it works until it doesn't work anymore, until something else is done. Again, I don't like how these things are being handled at all. I haven't liked it from the very beginning. Again, I do think that the president does have power to use reciprocal tariffs, going after countries for certain things. But the sweeping nature of the way that these things were applied, again, doesn't make any sense to me. And, the way that he's handling things, gets upset, wants to bring the European Union, okay, 50% tariffs on. I said to myself that day, I was like, you got to be kidding me. I said, this can't go into effect. There's no way that this is going to happen. And some of the things that they're suggesting and what we're going to move to the United States, it's just nonsensical. So, again, people may say it's art of the deal, whatever. Okay, I hope you're right. But, I'd like to see as much trade as possible, free trade. And obviously you want to have reciprocal tariffs on countries that are harming us. But this across-the-board stuff is ridiculous.
There's a sense right now, I think, among most people in this country, as you watch the markets go up and down every day, and we kind of watch it play ping pong, that we'd like to see some periods and exclamation points at the end of sentences instead of the constant question marks that we feel we're getting right now. The perception is when there's not question marks, we have a little bit more stability. When there are question marks, obviously we're kind of up in the air again. You get the same kind of feeling, Chris?
Well, absolutely. I mean, again, when you have capital and you want to put it at risk and you're a business owner, you want to build a plant or you want to expand, you want to know what your costs are going to be. I mean, you got to come up with a business plan.
Precisely.
You want to know what your input costs. And when you don't know what's going on, then what tends to happen is you don't do anything. And, you lose those animal spirits and that type of excitement that you want to go out and do things. So, I mean, these things need to be taken care of sooner rather than later. I know personally many businesses that have been hurt significantly because of these tariffs. Everything can't be done here in the United States. We're not going to be growing coffee here in the United States. We're not growing tea here in the United States. There's certain things that we're just not going to do. So, the across-the-board nature of this, quite frankly, was just ridiculous. And hopefully, you're right, we can get this some certainty back into our overall economy.
We're talking with Chris Markowski, the watchdog on Wall Street, here on the Gary Sutton Show on WOYK. Next to inflation, Chris, America's ranked housing as their top financial worry in a Gallup poll survey last May. Now, it's only gotten worse. January home sales were down 5% from last year's dismal numbers. Record numbers of first-time buyers are stuck on the sidelines. Housing affordability stands at the lowest level ever recorded, while 1 in 3 Americans now spend over 30% of their income on mortgage or rent. Talk a little bit about the housing crisis right here. And it's not just an American problem. It seems like it's a global phenomenon that's hitting really middle and working class families all over the world.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And again, you take a look, and it's just you look at tariffs, and the cost of building a home, the input costs, the cost of various different regulations that are been put in place that raise the price of a home. The fact that home builders they're not interested in building starter homes. They're not interested in building starter homes because they can't make money on them, and then it makes it more difficult because there's quite frankly not enough available. So, these are some of the things that has affected housing. Again, certain areas, it's zoning as well. So, again, we do need more housing here in the United States. Again, when people are spending that much money, it's very difficult to save for a rainy day and to do other things. It's, the cost of being an American nowadays, it's not cheap. And, I try to, stress this when I talk to younger people all the time. This is the reality of the train right now. I mean, we can complain about it all you want. That's not going to make it go away. And I suggest them, I said, you got your first job, you're doing well. You may want to work a little bit extra on the weekend. You may want to pick up a second job until you can get ahead so you can make those down payments because, you don't want to be house poor. It's a difficult situation to be in when your stuff ends up owning you.
I saw a report from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. They concluded that, quote, exactly what you just said, housing has been the main driver of rising middle-class expenditure, unquote. And the simple math problem here is when housing prices are rising far faster than household incomes and inflation, you got a problem. And that's the problem that we face right now, not only in this country, but in other places around the world.
I think that we're due for a bit of a housing correction. People are
right.
House price. I think it's healthy. I do think that we're going to be due very shortly to see things come back, and hopefully it's sooner rather than later. And unfortunately, people get bent out of shape about that. And I'm like, what do I care if the value of my house comes down right now? I'm not going anywhere. It's a home. I always try to explain people, it's an installment plan purchase. Don't look at it as an investment. You have to live somewhere. You can't hang from a tree. You're not a bat. So, don't look at it that way. And in the same sense, don't buy something you can't afford thinking that you're going to be able to sell it more later on down the road. That's not always the case. That got people a lot of trouble back in 2005, 2006, which led to, 2008, 2009. So, again, understand what it is. You have to live somewhere. Get something that you can afford. And don't be afraid to hold off. Don't be pressured because, again, you do not want to be home poor. It causes all sorts of problems in relationships and a myriad of other things. If you've got to rent for a period of time, do it.
Finally, we talk about China a lot. They have dramatically curtailed their lending in recent years. Now they're emerging as the largest debt collector for many of the world's poorest nations, which is a shift that threatens to undermine the poverty reduction efforts and fuel instability, according to a brand new report. your thought on China right now as the big collector of money here around the world.
Well, through their, you're talking about through their Belt and Road Initiative?
The Belt and Road
the money
Initiative.
That they,
exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Again, they promised a lot of infrastructure projects in various different places around the globe, and again, they gave some pie in the sky numbers to some of these countries, but once again, these countries bought into it, and now they've become kind of like debt servants to China at this point in time because they're unable to pay these things back.
Right.
Now, again, we've done this. The United States has done this throughout our history too, without a doubt. Through various different organizations like the World Bank and other IMF and whatnot. You get in countries, we end up becoming debt servants. Again, I don't know what these countries are going to end up doing, whether they end up defaulting or not. But the Belt and Road Initiative, to some degree, has sputtered out. In other places, they're doing well. China is now, they're basically the main person behind oil and gas in Iraq at this point in time. They've stepped in there and they filled that void. So areas it's worked well for them, other areas not as much.
Yeah, the Belt and Road Initiative, for those of you who have not heard it that way, funding for a whole bunch of new railways, ports, roads in the developing world. And began winding down a little bit before the COVID-19 pandemic. But the report that was out there by Australia's Lowy Institute, which is a foreign policy think tank, basically points to diplomatic pressure within China to restructure, going back to answering your question there, Chris, restructure unsustainable debt and to recover outstanding debts from abroad for the change. So now they're asking people who couldn't afford it in the first place to pay them back or restructure the way they're going to have to deal with this debt in the long run, right?
Yeah, and again, China most certainly has their own problems as well. They're really trying to spur consumption within that country. But again, the people in China, they're very, it's a different mentality, a different culture. Yeah. People are not inclined to go out and spend if they don't feel comfortable, and the value of their housing has come down. You've got youth unemployment that is at very, very high levels. And they're concerned about the future, and they don't spend when that's the case. And China's given, multiple incentives. They've actually rolled out the old Obama cash for clunkers thing, trying to encourage people to trade in their old cars and get new ones. And, we all know how that works out. You're just, basically moving the future into the present, which makes no sense. So again, they're hurting right now as well as far as their overall economy is concerned.
Chris, great stuff this morning. Thanks again, and congratulations again to your daughter. Please pass that on from us on finishing national champions. Good stuff. Proud dad. Again, I can hear you beaming down there. And have a great rest of the week, okay?
You got it. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. Take care. Chris Markowski, the watchdog of Wall Street, right here on the Gary Sutton Show on WOYK. Back with news under the radar right after this.
Feels like Christmas time in here, Gary, don't it?
Every day.
Every day it feels like
Every day,
Christmas.
it just feels like Christmas here on the Gary Sutton Show on WOYK. We're at 6:53 here. This song was written by Irving Berlin.
83 years ago.
1942. I remember it well.
First released,
Yeah,
yes.
I think I was 30 at the time. No,
Recorded. I'm being corrected by Marco. Recorded 83 years ago.
but it was not for White Christmas.
No, that's it. It was 83 years ago today, on this date. That's right, the end of May. So when you hear that song and think, Christmas.
Christmas time.
Forget it.
It was hot outside. They were going to
The end of
golf.
May.
Well, it was written by Irving Berlin, which is now Irving West Berlin, for the 1942 musical film Holiday Inn. A lot of people thought it was written for White Christmas. It was not. It was Holiday Inn, and White Christmas was sung in that movie, also starring Bing Crosby. But the song won the Academy Award for the Best Original Song at the 15th Academy Awards. The 15th Academy Awards. Originally sung by Bing Crosby, it topped the Billboard chart for 11 weeks.
A Christmas song.
A Christmas song.
Wow.
White Christmas, 11 weeks, and returned to the number one position again in December of 43 and 44. His version would return to the top 40 a dozen times in subsequent years.
That's something Mariah Carey would do. I think that's something Mariah Carey has done.
Well, maybe. But anyway, since its release, White Christmas has been covered by a lot of artists, but Crosby's versions in the world's best-selling single is the world's best-selling single in terms of sales of physical media, with estimated sales in excess of, are you ready for this? 50 million physical copies worldwide of White Christmas.
Every bit of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a Christmas song that's more iconic
No, it's the best.
and been around longer.
Now, when the figures for other versions of the song are added to Crosby's sales of the song, it exceeds 100 million, which, again, probably not surprising at all. There's a lot of accounts about as to when and where Berlin actually wrote the song. One story has it that he wrote it in 1940 in La Quinta, California, which is really warm, as Mark mentioned a moment ago,
Interesting.
while staying at the La Quinta Hotel, a frequent Hollywood retreat, also favored by writer, director, producer Frank Capra, although the Arizona Biltmore also claims the song was written there. He often stayed up all night writing. One day he told his secretary, quote, "I want you to take down a song I wrote over the weekend. Not only is it the best song I ever wrote, it's the best song anybody wrote."
ever has ever written.
Unless you
What
watch
a
the movie
statement.
Bohemian Rhapsody, and Freddie Mercury says that Bohemian Rhapsody was the best song anybody's ever written. The first public appearance of the song, performance of the song, was by Bing Crosby in the NBC radio show The Kraft Music Hall on Christmas Day, 1941, a few weeks after the attack on Pearl Harbor.
Oh, that's
Strangely
interesting.
enough. So there you go.
I think I remember hearing about that at some point.
Yeah, so it is a song which is out there, and obviously one that everyone knows, and one of the most recorded song and bought recorded song ever. So what else do we have this morning here on the list?
There's a story here. I've had some very interesting flights, especially when I took my flight to Vegas. But there were a couple passengers that had a very, very interesting pre-flight experience.
Let's find out about it.
Some passengers may have been using foul language after a pair of pigeons caused their Delta flight from Minneapolis to Madison, Wisconsin to be delayed for nearly an hour. Sound courtesy of Tom Caw and TMX as the birds ruffled feathers on board the plane and left many passengers chirping. A member of the Delta ground crew helped capture the first pigeon flapping around the cabin, while a passenger caught the second in his coat. Tom Graham, Fox News.
So first thing, of course, it's Delta. Right. Let's start there. Of course, it's Delta Airlines that gets two pigeons trapped in their plane before takeoff.
I'm afraid I'm kind of surprised that they weren't. If it was, what's the one, the real cheap one? The cheap
There's Spirit. Is a pretty cheap one.
Like in Spirit, you'd think the
Frontier.
pigeons were trying to get out. You know, that would
They're
be
like,
they get in there and said, "This is it. This is the
There's no
best you get."
snacks in here, man. We got to get out of this plane. There's no peanuts in here. There's no cashews.
Well, nobody gets those anymore. But anyway, I also put up this morning on the Gary Sutton Show on Facebook about a sound that instantly makes you angry. And I wanted to help people a little bit because someone said, what do you mean? For example, like the styrofoam rubbing on styrofoam.
Oh, I hate that.
That makes my
man.
teeth and my brain hurt.
Yeah.
Microwaves that keep beeping after you open the door. You have any of those? Oh, my gosh.
I haven't run into those. They normally stop when you open the door.
Yeah, it sounds like, an atomic bomb is about to go off. The chirp of a dying battery in a smoke detector.
Oh, man.
Yeah, make it stop.
At least it's not constant. Can you imagine if it was like every 10 seconds?
How about the Microsoft Teams alert? The sound of an incoming Teams call puts me in a fight or flight kind of. It's kind of like when I hear the song, It's a Small World After All. I want to go dive for it and run and try to save myself. Smacking when eating.
Oh, I mean, eating noises in general.
When
right?
a fork scrapes a plate.
Yeah.
Speaking of eating.
That's like nails on a chalkboard.
Snoring.
Right, that's an easy one.
A cat about to bark for in our house, Cotton Eye Joe.
Just Cotton Eye Joe in
Where
general?
did you come from? Where did you go? Anyway, so that's it. And hearing bruh, when someone says bruh, stop it. Well, anyway, Joel Sears, never annoying, up next at 7:05 here in the Gary Sutton Show. But first, we'll take a break for news at the top of the hour. It is 7 o'clock.
York's only local show is back on its new home on York's only local station.
Guess who's back? Back again.
This is the Gary Sutton Show on WOYK.
I'm back.
Now, broadcasting live from WOYK's downtown York studios inside Wellspan Park, here's Gary Sutton.
And welcome back to hour number 2 of the Gary Sutton Show, the main street of York at 7:05. On a Thursday morning, 54 degrees outside, but most importantly, it is not raining. My wife and I celebrating our 21st anniversary today, 25 years together, actually. And this is the main street of York County, brought to you by Barley Snyder Law Firm, our presenting sponsor. Innovative legal solutions for your business. They are a law firm for today's business world. You can find them right here in York at 100 East Market Street. Give them a call today at 717-846-8888. They're open 9 to 5 weekdays right here, or 9 to 5 weekdays here in York. And you can check them out at barley.com. This hour of the Gary Sutton Show brought to you by Accountability for Life. Yeah, you talk about a great outfit here. This outfit is committed to preparing and mentoring at-risk adolescents for lifelong success. And what they do is they use an athletics-based platform to educate them on, things that we've forgotten about, principles, please, thank you, cleaning up the community, helping others, fundamental behaviors and concepts and actions that have the power to define a person's course of life. AFL mentors at-risk adolescents, and Coach Russ Stoner and all his people are doing a great job with that right now. Gives them the concept of integrity, requiring ownership of one's actions, accountability, right? www.aflyorkpa.info, or you can give Russ a call today at 717-577-0306, or find them at aflyorkpa.info. And by the way, you can sign up right now for their golf tournament. They have that next week of June 6th, and they've got openings. They need sponsorships. You need to get out there and give them a hand right now. AFL, doing great work here in the community. Accountability for Life, 755 Vogelsong Road in York. With all of that having been said this morning, we welcome in a guy that does a lot of work for us. He's constantly looking at policy. He's looking at the things that are happening around us that really matter. He is Joel Sears, and he's here on WOYK. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well, Gary. How are you?
Joel,
happy anniversary.
Thank you so much. Enjoying a great day and looking forward to, just so many wonderful memories and years so far, and so many more to go, we hope. So that's what we love. But I know you and your wife, Jenny, have celebrated a few of those. You know exactly what I'm talking about. But what do we have this morning? I see where we've got this court that now has said that the president cannot carry out the tariffs, and yet another court case here to add to the pantheon of ones that we have in our country. But what are you looking at this morning?
Well, that and then a couple of specific examples of how tariffs, if they really do achieve the objective that the president's looking for, which is essentially 100% onshoring of 100% of everything.
Yeah.
What does that really mean? And it gets a little intricate, but I want to get into some of that if you don't mind.
Have at it.
I think essentially what he's doing is skating on thin ice, and he probably knew that from the get-go. Emergency actions and emergency orders by a president are kind of dicey to start with, and the other thing that we all understand is that they're reversible.
Doesn't emergency, when you hear that word, indicate to you momentary? I mean, emergency is momentary, and now the moment may last longer or shorter, but it's still a momentary thing, right?
It's not only momentary, Gary, but it's generally produced by external affairs. This is one that we created.
Right.
It's taken 30 years for us to create this emergency, but we were an aiding and abetting party of this emergency.
Okay.
There were a lot of folks that saw that early on. The point about emergencies, as you say, though, is that they're not only temporary, but they have specific short-term actions that take care of them. If we have a volcano going off, we don't agonize over for 40 or 50 years. We take action.
Right.
Now, in this case, these actions cannot have immediate impact except to disrupt the markets. That's been the immediate takeaway. If we really want onshoring and domestic manufacturing of everything that we produce, or just, pick one thing. I said, all right, yesterday I'll look at 4 things. Let's start with athletic shoes. How's that?
Okay.
I don't consider them to be a strategically important industry in the country. They're nice to have, they're fairly expensive, but they're not a gotta have, I guess, unless you're coveting the next pair of Air Jordans.
Right, exactly.
Right now, 99% of the shoes that are made in the United States are imported, not just athletic, shoes in general.
Right.
I start looking at these numbers, and it's mind-boggling. The whole industry is valued at about $1.9 billion, which is a tiny fraction of the $90 billion athletic footwear market.
Wow.
So we've got a long way to go if you'd like to bring athletic shoe manufacturing back to the States. First, we're going to get massive price increases. The estimates are anywhere from 150 to 200% increase in prices. That would take a pair of the type of shoes, for example, at athletic teams in high schools and college shoes. It would run the price of those shoes up to maybe $300.
Yeah. And how many people are going to pay that?
Not many. So here's what would happen if, in fact, this does happen. Then it would fall on the taxpayer because you've been in public education. You know what happens when the kids can't afford what's necessary for a given program, especially sacred sports.
Right.
The school steps up and pays for it, which means you and I pay for it.
Exactly.
We don't have the factory capacity. We don't have the scale. We don't have the equipment. We don't have the workforce. So when you think about trying to onshore something like that, first, think about the price increases, and second, think about the challenges to scaling up the marketplace, to building the factories and hiring the workers.
Joel,
we have to add maybe 15,000 or so workers, and it's not a high-paying job.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. How do you undercut people who are, and I hate to say this word, but people who are working in sweatshops in a lot of cases to produce these things, right? I mean, or producing them for under what we would consider to be a living wage. How do you do that and onshore that over here and say you work for the same amount of money that they work for over there? It's not going to happen.
Well, you would have to understand that you can't get them to work for the same amount of money. But even if you said, let's try something that's similar to wages in a production facility today, you might be looking at $35,000 to $40,000 a year.
Yeah,
it's not insignificant, but it's right at the edge of what's called the living wage.
Exactly that point.
And you would be competing with dozens, hundreds, thousands of other industries, large and small, for those same workers if you really wanted to onshore all of our production. So that's just athletic shoes, and you figure, well, that's not. I could live without the next pair of athletic shoes. How about a television set?
Yeah.
I don't think we have. In fact, I know we don't have a single domestic manufacturer today. Some are built in this country, but they're not built by U.S.-owned factories. Do you know that?
I did not know that. No, I'm sitting here kind of stunned. I just picked my jaw up off the desk, and because I think back to some of the old names of Sylvania and some of those places. Right. You assume that they're all kind of built here.
Yeah, RCA, Emerson, you name it. Nearly all of the TVs sold here now are assembled in Mexico or Asia.
Wow.
And what I picked up in the quote was the U.S. having almost no large-scale TV manufacturing capacity. So we start looking at what that actually means. And this will underscore another point if we get there, but back in 1952 when my dad hauled our first TV set into the house,
right,
that was a $500 expenditure, Gary.
Wow, yeah.
The median income back then was $3,200. Look at that as a percentage of the median family income. It's incredible. Now, obviously, through all kinds of technological advances and the like, televisions have gotten bigger, better, and cheaper. And today, $500 will buy you a pretty darn good television.
Absolutely, yeah.
Median income $75,000. So where it might have been 10 to 15% of median income back in the early 50s, it's now less than 1%. So much, much more affordable. Well, what happens if we start thinking about onshoring? You can double the price of the televisions, and you can be competing for all of these laborers. You'd have to increase the number of laborers to around 100,000. And where are they? With wages that would probably compete with those in the athletic shoe business, somewhere in the $40,000 to $50,000 range.
Right.
And try finding these people. So not only do you have the capital investment in factories, the dependence on what really don't exist today in terms of local supply chain, you can see how it ripples all the way through the economy. But I think it helps to put a number on it and just not, get away from this 500,000 foot view of how lovely it would be to have all these folks working in U.S. factories.
So it's a great ideal. It's a great ideal to shoot for, but it's not realistic. I mean, by what you're talking about, because as you go through each individual industry that you can use here, they just doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't make sense because of the way things have been for a long, long time around the world, right?
Well, exactly, Gary. And it's been, I don't look at trade as a nefarious way for the rest of the world to beat us in the marketplace. I look at it as a cooperative activity,
right.
For the most part it is. And if we have problems, where we have problems, and we do have problems, then let's attack the problem. It doesn't necessarily have to be with a scalpel, but to go in with a blowtorch or a Gatling gun really just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well,
I shot all the way to the end of the economic spectrum and said, what if we had all of our Boeing 737s made 100% domestically?
Yeah.
And you see, it's more than just this workers, wages, supply chain. It's also international relations. Parts are sourced from all over the world to build that aircraft. So what we're doing through this kind of production and this kind of cooperation is propping up the world through productivity rather than handouts. To me, that's really what the essential takeaway on international trade is. Well, if we incorporate people in the rest of the world, we're giving them the hand up, not the hand out.
There's something else here, too, I think, and as a final thought on this, Joel, for this week, that we need to have an atmosphere where we can work together on these problems as opposed to throwing down the gauntlet at people and saying it's your fault. That's not exactly what it is. I mean, it's the fault of two sides here, and that we have to be able to, at the end of the day, say, okay, this is the way things are produced. This is the way things are put together. This is the way things come together. There's a lot of people involved in this. Let's try to do it. I'm not saying hold hands and sing Kumbaya, but I'm not that far away from that either. That the idea, if we don't have an atmosphere where we can get together and solve these problems, then we start to see those breakups in supply chains and things like that. Final thoughts this morning on your part.
A couple things. Let's understand that it takes a lot of effort to reshore anything.
Yes.
Something as simple as athletic shoes or as complex as a Boeing 737. If the president is taken literally, Gary, I assume that what he's trying to do is put an end to consumerism as we know it. And he might have let the cat out of the bag when he said kids only need $2 at Christmas time instead of 30.
Right.
He's not really elegant in the choice of words, but I think sometimes the thought is what you need to take away. And that's what I took away from that.
And in America, the sky is the limit. I mean, that's kind of what we've always had, and you could go anywhere you want to go. And that kind of starts to talk about limits on what you can do. And that's a much scarier kind of statement. Maybe we can pick up with that next week and talk about that a little bit, as well as some other stuff, too. Joel, always appreciate your insights and your preparation. Thank you so much this morning for this great topic.
Well, you're welcome, Gary.
Have a great rest of your week, my friend.
Weekend.
Thanks so much. Take care. Joel Sears, right here on the Gary Sutton Show on WOYK. When we come back, some news you just might have missed. We've got it for you, and much more. All here on the Gary Sutton Show, the Main Street of York, and it's right here on WOYK 98.9 FM and 1350 WOYK AM.
Fox Sports Update.
The Oklahoma City Thunder, champions of the NBA's Western Conference. Good morning, I'm Jared Max.
Now they'll wait to see who wins Indiana, New York, which will be tomorrow. Well, the final score, 124-94.
On ESPN, Oklahoma City stamped its mark on Game 5 in the first quarter when the Thunder built a 17-point lead and held Minnesota to its fewest points in any quarter this season and fewest ever in a playoff game, 9. Minnesota committed more turnovers in the first half than it converted field goal attempts. The Thunder led 65-32 at halftime. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who won his first NBA Most Valuable Player award last week, named the winner of the Magic Johnson Western Conference Finals MVP. Gilgeous-Alexander averaged over 31 points a game in this series, 34 last night.
Of course, I want to thank my teammates. Without them, I'm nothing. Clear as day. I don't have 124 points by myself. I love these guys to death. Now, with all that being said, this is a step in the right direction, but we have a lot more work to do, and we know that, and that's what we're focused on. So let's buckle up and get ready.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on ESPN. Game 1 of the NBA Finals next Thursday in Oklahoma City. The Thunder will face either the Pacers or the Knicks. Indiana leads 3-1 and can advance tonight. Get this, according to the Elias Sports Bureau, Oklahoma City has the second youngest roster ever to make it to the NBA Finals. Average age, 25.6 years old.
Barkov cuts away from Orlov, slides it across, score! Carter Verhaeghe! And the Panthers go back on top!
On TNT, the reigning Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers came back from 2-0 down to beat the Hurricanes 5-3 last night and advanced to the Cup final for the third straight year. Florida awaits the winner of Edmonton and Dallas. The Oilers can return to the Cup final with a win tonight in Dallas. For more scores, stories, and features, go to foxsports.com. I'm Jared Max.
Get more on the Fox Sports app and foxsports.com.
You know, we talk about our presenting sponsor, Barley Snyder Law Firm, a lot, but one of the things that they do that I think is really good is they keep us educated. When you're a client at Barley Snyder finds it important to keep your clients informed of, relevant industry information, including, like, for example, changes in law and regulations that may directly affect their organizations. They regularly issue client updates in the form of alerts and articles, newsletters, social media posts, training opportunities, and educational seminars. That's a lot. They also have the ability to provide many of those programs in Spanish for employers with large Spanish-speaking employee populations. You can sign up to receive that information at www.barley.com or view all the updates at barley.com/ourinsights. That's the kind of things they do on a regular basis. And we have a Barley Snyder's right here in York. We're located at 100 East Market Street in York, 717-846-8888, and they're open 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. They're a law firm representing businesses, organizations, and individuals in all major areas of civil law with over 130 different attorneys around Pennsylvania and Maryland. They're ready to help you today. They're our presenting sponsor, Barley Snyder Law Firm. Check them out today at barley.com. WOYK News Time is 7:25. And what else do we have going on this morning, Chase?
Well, it turns out that one of my favorite candies has had something not so great in it for a while, and they are just now taking it out. So let's take a look at what it is.
When you taste the rainbow with Skittles, you're no longer going to be subjected to titanium dioxide, the ingredients used to make food look whiter. The Make America Healthy Again Commission, chaired by Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr., recently released a report that mentioned additives. It said titanium dioxide is widely used in a range of candies and sauces and may cause cellular and DNA damage. The makers of Skittles, Mars Wrigley, is giving the additive the boot in the U.S. It's already been banned by the European Union. Jill Nato, Fox News.
I was just saying to my wife the other day, I said, does this have a little too much titanium dioxide in it? I couldn't
just
tell.
Just a little bit.
Just a touch.
Just a touch, yeah.
You just need a touch of that. You don't need a lot. It's like salt. You put too much salt, put too much titanium dioxide in, you got a problem. I was looking at some news this morning that you might have missed. You might have missed this. Let's see. A beatboxing nun from Brazil has gone viral.
Beatboxing nun.
Beatboxing nun.
I didn't know they were capable of being so swag.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I think that if you think that's crazy, just wait until you see the new Pope pop that body. I mean, yeah. I mean, we're going to be talking about the Pope later on today.
It's going to be a headlining.
Yeah, there you go. A man bitten by an alligator was shot and killed by police after trying to steal their car.
This has got to be in Florida, right?
Thank you. If you can't guess
Absolutely.
what state that was in, I was going to say you're an idiot. I mean, it's Florida.
You know, there's whole websites dedicated to Florida news.
Exactly right.
Crazy Florida news.
Yeah, Texas, is there really? I did not know that.
Absolutely. There's so many of them. They only highlight the craziest news out of Florida. Alligators and Everglades and whatnot.
I saw, one of my favorite steak places, Texas Roadhouse, is America's #1 casual dining restaurant. Now, RFK Jr. still prefers Texas Roadkill, which that's his favorite place. Let's see. Today is, Tesla dealerships are struggling to sell Cybertrucks.
I wonder why.
Have you ever seen the look of those things?
You know what? I think a Cybertruck. I got a 5-year-old niece, and I think a Cybertruck is the drawing of a truck that she gave me that I put on my fridge when she was like 6 months old.
Well, I saw they're having a tough time selling these suckers. If things don't improve soon, Elon Musk may convert them back to rest stop urinals. So I know that's what they'll be used for then.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. GQ says that Speedos could be the big trend for guys at the beach this year. Really?
I don't think so.
Which means that staying home could be the big trend for women. That could be the big trend if Speedos come out again.
I'm not pulling off a Speedo. It can't happen.
No.
Absolutely not.
Speedos left the building some time ago as really cool.
You know, it's big in Europe, though. In European beaches, Speedos are all the rage. I don't think Americans are into it.
Have a little bit of, I don't know, be a little bit inhibited, guys in Europe. Let's see.
I got something for you if you're a little interested. We were talking about pests and insects yesterday, and there's a new species of termite. Let's take a look.
Home and boat owners are encouraged not to bug out, but to watch out for evidence of termites on their property. 2 different termite species are breeding, creating a hybrid termite with colonies confirmed in South Florida. Researchers at the University of Florida say Formosan subterranean termites and Asian subterranean termites are coexisting and mating with each other. The lead author of the study called it not great news that the 2 most destructive termites in the world are hybridizing in Florida. Maps from the study show a large presence of both species of the destructive insects in southeast Florida, as well as the Tampa area. CJ Papa, Fox News.
How bad is it when the termites are inbreeding?
Hybrid termite. That sounds like a movie villain. That seems like a bad Marvel villain.
Where is Steve Shetter in TES Pest when we need him? We should have had this yesterday. Mark and I were talking about this morning. I heard this story. Well, we've got a lot coming up here at 7:35 this morning on the Gary Sutton Show. And we want to be checking in with Dennis Owens, ABC 27 News. 10 commandments in every classroom. They're talking about doing that in Texas. We'll talk to Dennis about that and all other things political when he joins us here at 7:35, right after a news update at the bottom of the hour. WOYK News Time is 7:30. Welcome back to Gary Sutton Show. It is a day late, but we got so involved yesterday with so many things going on that we couldn't play our TV shows coming back here on the show. And do you know the name of this tune? A little dated, but one of the cool guys out there, MacGyver.
I do like me some MacGyver.
Yeah, it's an okay show, but a good-looking guy that's running around, jumping on helicopters and crawling down deserts and all kinds of things. And
James Bond, a poor man's James
a
Bond.
poor man's James Bond.
Poor man James Bond.
Yeah. So Richard Dean Anderson, the actor in that. So yeah. By the way, this hour being brought to you by Accountability for Life. And by the way, Accountability for Life is having their annual golf tournament next week, June 6th, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Are the tee-off times out at Briarwood Golf Course, 4775 West Market Street, New York. You can join for the Golf Classic. It's going to be fantastic. And by the way, go to AFL.com. That's AFL.com. Now, Accountability for Life is just an outstanding group led by Russ Stoner. Russ Stoner started this. He's the head coach over at York High. And what they do is they provide coaches and educators and other community-based partners with character-building resource toolkits aimed at promoting the importance of accountability in all areas of a student-athlete's life. And the golf tournament is one way to help take care of funding those kinds of things. And you can have a great time as well. Now, you can give a call today to get signed up for that to Russ Stoner, 717-577-0306, or assistant coach Mike Terrell at 717-250-8961. Russ Stoner, 577-0306, or 0306, or Coach Mike Terrell at 717-250-8961. AFL YorkPA.info is where you can go to get information as well. AFL YorkPA.info. They're changing student-athletes' life by teaching and modeling the concept of integrity and requiring ownership of one's actions, and doing some great work here in the community. Check them out at AFL. Gary Sutton with you here on a Thursday morning, 7:36, and we bring in Dennis Owens this morning from ABC 27 News. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing?
I am well. I am having a great time and just trying to figure out if I can ever play golf again if the sun comes out. I suspect you're doing the same thing, but, how's everything going for you this week, my friend?
Well, yeah, my game is awful, but I got a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old that love playing, and that's the key, so I go out with them, chance to spend some time with them, but my game is terrible.
So what is jumping out at you this week? I saw something this morning that I wanted to pose to you. There's a Texas bill that would order the Ten Commandments to be displayed in all public school classrooms. Now, it was pushed ahead by the state Senate on Wednesday in Texas. And the legislation is going to go to Greg Abbott's desk, who is the governor, after the House of Representatives passed an amended version on Sunday. And I keep thinking about these things like putting the Ten Commandments back in the classroom. I don't have a problem with that, but it seems like everybody is like, this is like throwdown time in our political world, that we're going to force you to do things our way, and then some other administration comes in, we're going to force things to be our way, and somewhere in the middle are the common sense American people would say, hey, how about if we just kind of try to figure this out in a common sense way? What's your take on all that kind of attitude?
Well, I'll dip into the personal a little bit. I have kids that go to Catholic school, and my daughter just graduated from Trinity High School last week.
Congratulations.
Going to Notre Dame, so we're excited about that.
Wow.
And so I have no problem. My late dad used to joke when the whole fight was over the Ten Commandments, which one exactly do you think is not a good public policy? Having said that, we have a standing tradition here where we don't force religion on people. The state especially was founded for religious freedom.
Right.
And religious freedom means you don't only have a choice of a religion, you have a choice not to practice any religion or believe in any religion.
And
I just feel like, don't our lawmakers, we've got a $37 trillion debt and a $3 trillion structural deficit. Don't they have better things to be working on?
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think the idea that it's all symbolic. I hate the idea of constantly worrying more about the symbolic than the substance. The substance is kind of where you and I live, the policy. What are we doing that are helping people in the country in realistic terms right now instead of this symbolic stuff? But to a lot of people in America, symbolic has become very, very important, maybe more important sometimes than substance.
Well, right, and where you can, and there's also the constant attempt to do the political gotcha.
Exactly.
Which isn't making any of our for the elected officials making our lives any better. I'm not so sure. Having said that, I think again, here's the problem with you and I, my friend. We see both sides to these things. Everything isn't so black and white, and everything isn't so one side's altruistic and the other side's bad. That's the way our political climate is these days. But that's not accurate, and that's not the truth.
I call it the personality politics of the moment. I don't have much time for the personality because personalities come and go, but the policy that's left behind is what we have to deal with. And I think the idea, like our show, our kind of mantra is conversation and examination. And I think things have to stand up to scrutiny. And it doesn't have to do with the personality. It has to do with what is the substance of every policy that comes along the way, because that's really where I think thinking people ought to be kind of spending their time. Your thoughts?
Well, I agree. And let me give you a specific that's big for us, and it's the story I did yesterday, and it has to do with U.S. Steel. And President Trump apparently changing his mind and now wanting there to be a deal with Nippon Steel. He didn't call it a sale, by the way. He called it a partnership. And look, there are certain people, the headline, I understand the headline, the great company of U.S. Steel being owned by a foreign entity. Okay, first of all, if U.S. Steel, without that investment, is dying on the vine, and those jobs are going to be lost anyway, well, I don't understand why there's a concern about who wants to come in and invest in it if it's going to be American and, more importantly for us, Pennsylvania jobs, headquartered in Pittsburgh. According to U.S. Senator Dave McCormick, the U.S. government will have some oversight and some veto power on some of the decisions that are made. And, it's great money. They're not taking the company. They're not taking the company and putting it in Japan. The company is going to stay right here.
Right.
And it's withering on the vine here under the current ownership. And why shouldn't another company come in? So anyway, long story short, the headline, and I understand, I call it almost jingoistic of, it's an American company, we can't have another company owning it. Okay, I get that. But at the same time, I want good paying jobs, and I want a company that's investing here, and I want the steel to be made here.
Right. Yeah, and so at the end of the day, which is it going to be? Or is there a hybrid in between? That's the big question.
Well, right. And maybe this is a little bit of a hybrid because, quote unquote, a partnership as opposed to a straight out sale. And, if there is some oversight and some things they have to abide by, but where I was going with that is there's nuance, right? It's not all black and white. There's nuance in the whole thing.
Well, and that's the point, that the day of the sledgehammer maybe has come and gone, and we're hearing this thing now with taco being used, this idea of a new four-letter word that was developed by some guy named, I'm trying to think what this guy's name was that came up with it, but the idea that the president is kind of a chicken, that he goes out there and he throws out these big tariff things, and then he comes back and he says, oh, no, we're going to put they're going to be put off until July 9th. Okay, now we have some court came out yesterday and said the president's emergency powers of using tariffs is you can't do that, and they're going to fight that off right now. And they ruled in favor of a permanent injunction, potentially grinding Trump's global tariffs to a halt. So this idea of the president is a chicken, the president saying, I'm not a chicken, but he goes out and he pronounces the big thing, and then he comes back and says, not just yet. We're going to sit down with Europe now. We had 50% tariff last weekend, but now we're working things out with them. Let's put it off till July 9th and figure it out. We're seeing that practiced over and over again. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I have a couple of thoughts. Number one, the guy's not wrong in that Donald Trump does like to bluster, and usually the bluster is far more severe than the reality of what ultimately happens, and then he relents and backs off a little bit. But I will also say I don't like the idea of taunting the president, calling him a chicken, because I think he's the type of personality that will dig his heels in and maybe do something that he wouldn't otherwise do just because he wants to show somebody something. Which actually, in my opinion, is not a great, that I even said that, and I believe that, is not a great testament but to the commander-in-chief. But nonetheless, I do think that's the situation.
It is the way he's practicing, and you kind of hear the next two words after "you're a chicken" of "oh yeah." You remember we were kids? You're a chicken. Exactly. Oh yeah? Yeah, watch this. Exactly. Yeah, I think that's where you're heading with that.
Yeah, I don't think you want to do that with this president.
No, I think at the end of the day, here's something I thought about, though, too, in examining this. Does he create leverage, or does it become same old after a while? What's your thought on that, Dennis?
Well, and that's, boy, and you and I have been saying since January on this program that you have to wait and see. Yeah. And the bottom line is, if we get through the summer and we see that really some of our trade deals are better than they were before Trump, yes, there was bluster, yes, there was some panic in some quarters, yes, it wasn't clean. There was, I think the Democrats' favorite word with him is chaos. Yes, there was some of that. But at the end of the day, I don't know that it isn't strategically going to be better off for American trade deals and other situations than before he took office. So jury's still out, to be determined, is what I'm thinking.
Final question. Jake Tapper is going to make some money off this book that he's putting out, Original Sin, which is about Biden and did he dupe all the media, or did the media kind of willingly go along? And I've said a couple times, it almost seems obscene to me that Tapper is going to make money on this, as I see him as part of the problem, not the solution. What's your take on this whole deal, on this book that's out right now, Original Sin?
Well, and perhaps I'm a little too close to it as a news anchor at ABC 27. He has written a book. I do think there's some insights in there. I've not read the whole thing. I've seen some excerpts.
Yeah, so as have I.
Everybody's got a right to write a book. It's funny. I don't jump immediately to he shouldn't be allowed to write a book.
I'm not saying he shouldn't be allowed. I'm with you on that. I think everybody should be allowed to write a book. I'm just saying to me it's kind of obscene. Like you started the fire, then you tell people the components on how to start a fire. It's.
Well, and I can see what you're saying, but I don't know that Jake Tapper. See, you're suggesting. I think the president's men knew the if I can call up another famous presidential book, I think the president's men knew the degree to which, and that's why the book was written, the president's men knew the degree to which there was a problem and was maybe to whatever degree trying to cover it up. I don't know that the mainstream media, quote unquote, knew what it was and then just intentionally said, we're not going to tell the American people about that. Yeah. I mean, there might have been some of the advocacy stations that did some of the talking heads in the evening on the slanted networks that did, but I don't think mainstream media flat out knew and then intentionally didn't report. I don't think that's true.
Well, and I think what you have,
I know a lot of people think it's true.
That's the perception. Yeah, that's a perception by some. And the question is that the reality? Will any of that come out in this particular book or accompanying books that will come out as more and more people are starting to write about this? Great question to pose there, Dennis. Maybe a good place to stop for today, but thank you, my friend. And congratulations on your daughter graduating. That's a wonderful thing. Heading to Notre Dame, you're expecting her to know the fight song by the end of the summer, right?
Well, she knew the fight song when she was 4 years old.
Thank you. Yeah.
She's been to about 8 Notre Dame games through her life.
There you go. Hey, great stuff.
We raise them right around here.
What's that? I hear that. I hear that.
We raise them right around here.
Yeah. So I knew that already, my friend. But being an old sports guy yourself and a Notre Dame fan for life, I get how that all goes. Hey, looking forward to talking to you next week. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you then. Okay.
Thanks, man. See you later.
Thanks, Daddy. Take care. Dennis Owens here on the Gary Sutton Show on WOYK. This hour being brought to you by Accountability for Life. They provide coaches, educators, other community-based partners with character-building resource toolkits. Don't we all want to help kids And, a student athlete's life is really, really important, just like any student's life. We just talked about Dennis's daughter here. But you want to teach and you want to model the concept of integrity and requiring ownership of one's actions. Accountability. That's what they do at Accountability for Life. And I'll tell you what, Coach Russ Stoner is doing it right over there. You can go to aflyorkpa.info. Sign up for their golf tournament, which is coming up next week, June 6th. You can give Russ Stoner a call today at 717-577-0306 or go to aflyorkpa.info. We take a break. We come back with more news under the radar, all here on The Gary Sutton Show on WOYK.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. Your heart is true.
Welcome back, Gary Sutton Show. It is 7:52 here on a Thursday morning, and that's a song that a lot of you may have remembered on a TV show leading back. And Chase, what do we have there?
That is the theme from the Golden Girls.
Now, did you ever watch the Golden Girls?
You know what? It was my parents' favorite show ever. So yeah, I actually have seen quite a few episodes of Golden Girls.
That was a good
surprisingly.
Betty White, of course, the one that you most
yes, a very fond memory.
Well, she lived to like 100, right? I mean, she was.
It was wild.
Talk about a happy lady. Betty White was one of the happiest people you ever saw on TV. Do you remember who she was married to? Now, you probably don't remember this.
Me, no. Unfortunately, no.
But Mark does.
Password host.
Alan
Ludden.
Alan Ludden, who was, and also, didn't Alan Ludden host Truth or Consequences for a while? Am I thinking correctly?
I think that was Bill Cullen.
Bill Cullen, yeah.
And then he went on to do Price is Right.
There it is.
And
Mark's screaming out right now. He doesn't have a mic in front of him, so
just got all the information up there.
He's doing like the Garrett thing on Saturday Night Live. Where you put the little sort of.
And tonight's top story.
Right. Thank you. Off in the distance here. Anyway, welcome back to the Gary Sutton Show. What else do we have this morning here in terms of stories?
Well, we do have a unfortunate death in one of the presidential heritage lines. Let's take a look.
Okay.
10th President John Tyler. It's been 180 years since the elder Tyler was in office, but he holds the distinction of having fathered more children than any other U.S. president. His 13th child, Leon Gardner Tyler, was Harrison's father and had him at age 75. The grandson, Harrison, actually grew up poor during the Depression, despite his family tree, but during his life founded an industrial water treatment company and also bought his grandfather's family home and opened it to the public. His mother's side has a famous lineage as well. Susan Ruffin Tyler was a direct descendant of Pocahontas. Harrison Ruffin Tyler was 96 years old. John Saucier, Fox News.
Yeah.
96 years old.
96, yeah. The Harrison Ruffin. And where did he get that from? Well, Harrison was the guy before him. Harrison made too long a speech, which should be a warning to every president, by the way. You know, any president. It doesn't matter who.
Or any politician.
Yeah,
for that
shut it down. Be a little concise. You know, brevity is the soul of wit. Come on. You know, don't talk so long. I mean, that's really what it's all about. Because when Harrison did, he talked, a couple of hours. He gave it was like 3 hours. He stood out there in the
far
cold.
Too long.
Got a cold and died. You know, so
really? Wow.
Shouldn't that tell you something? And then Tyler took over for Harrison, and Tyler did not speak so long. He just took a very quick swear in, and that was that.
But where's his grandson?
Yeah, exactly right. I don't know.
You know, I also think the speech thing should go for Academy Award winners, too, because I've seen some Academy Award speeches that are 20, 30 minutes long.
They like me. They really love me.
I know. They just have so many people to thank. Their mom, their dad, their dog, their cat.
And then they go into the political stuff. And then, like we have the Fagari Indians out there, and we start talking about them. You know, wasn't that in F Troop or something? What was the Indians? The Fagawis. Oh, yeah. Remember that, the Fagawis? Yeah. The Fagawi Indians, yeah. So they're always standing up for something out there. Thank you. Just terrible. Just the Akawi. Oh, yeah. I didn't remember. It was an innocent thing. I was not thinking anything bad there. No, I was not. I honestly can say that. Anyway, what
Mark is over here.
What else do we? He knows where he. That was his mind. That was not my mind. Anyway,
right? Of course.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh Lord.
It's like we didn't.
Hey, how about some health news?
Yeah.
How about some health news?
I gotta tell you, Gary, I am always trying to better myself. Maybe not all day, every day, but whenever I try to be a little better, I can.
Well, why don't you bring up some health news right here to get us off this tangent?
This is House Call for Health. A study looks into the mental and physical health of American mothers, and the results are causing some concern. It found the mental health of moms with children 17 and under significantly dropped from 2016 to 2023. They found mothers who reported having excellent mental health declined nearly 13%, while those who chose fair or poor rose 3% in that period. Researchers suggest limited access to care, social isolation, and rising substance use disorders may be contributing to the decline. The study was published in the JAMA Internal Medicine Tuesday. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
And there you go. Some health news there. And do you have another story there for us too?
I believe, let's go.
This is Chase Hilligus, by the way, this morning with us. One, they are helping kids. And that's what we need to do. And they're helping them in all areas of a student athlete's life by teaching and modeling the concept of integrity, requiring ownership of one's actions. In short, accountability. Accountability for life. AFL. Check them out today at aflyorkpa.info. And they can give you a hand on signing up for the golf tournament next week. Coming up next, we are going to be checking in with Francis Rooney, Ambassador Francis Rooney, who, by the way, knows the Pope personally. Yes. Pope Leo XIV, he's going to give us some insights you may not hear anywhere else. And then Aaron Anderson at 8:35 joins us here on the Gary Sutton Show as well as we talk about the end of the year, the school year. He's the CEO over at Logos Academy. And what is going on? What are the prospects for young people coming out? What's graduation looking like? We'll talk about it all right here on the Gary Sutton Show. It is the Main Street of York on WOYK, where it's 8 o'clock.
York's only local show is back on its new home on York's only local station.
Guess who's back? Back again.
This is the Gary Sutton Show on WOYK.
I'm back.
Now, broadcasting live from WOYK's downtown York studios inside Wellspan Park, here's Gary Sutton.
And welcome to the final hour of the Gary Sutton Show here on a Thursday morning. Brought to you by our presenting sponsor, which is Barley Snyder Law Firm, innovative legal solutions for your business. They are a law firm for today's business world. Check them out at barley.com. This hour of the Gary Sutton Show is brought to you by Augie's Joint, and it's located right here at the Central Market. They're open 5 days a week now. Yes, they are, from 10 until 2. Augie's Joint is the place, if you want a sandwich, I'm telling you what, they are fantastic. This week's specials, by the way, the burger special is the Salisbury Steak Burger. I was just talking to Mark about this. Homemade Salisbury steak, fried onions, mushroom gravy, and provolone on a toasted brioche bun. The hot dog special today, and again, open 10 to 2 today, right there at the Central Market on the Beaver Street side. The hot dog special is the 5 points all-beef hot dog topped with sauerkraut, prosciutto from Berry Orchard right there at the Central Market, horseradish mustard, and balsamic glaze served on a brioche top slice roll. I went up there and got my chili dog yesterday, by the way, at Augie's Joint. And Jewel said, do you want to try the 5 points? I said, I don't want to yet, but I will one of these weeks. Don't forget, all their burgers come in beef, turkey, or the bison farm right next door to them. Open 5 days a week from Tuesday to Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And they have got an Augie's Doggy, which, by the way, is dog sauce, which is chili sauce without beans, house onions, mustard, and cheese. I'll tell you what, I'm licking my chops because I had one yesterday. Fantastic. I also tried some of their tater tots yesterday that had chili on. I said, could you put a little bit of your dog sauce on there? She did. I was in heaven. I sat there and talked with Jewel for a while. They're doing a great job. 10 to 2 over there at Augie's Joint, Central Market, and they are just a fantastic place right up here. Go in the Beaver Street side, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It is Augie's Joint. You will not be sorry you stopped there for lunch today. Now, we are joined this morning by someone who has joined our show several times, Francis Rooney. I don't know if they have chili dogs at the Vatican. I doubt it. But Ambassador Francis Rooney, if they've had him there, he's probably had him. Good morning, Ambassador Rooney. Great to have you back on the show. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me back on.
Well, I was doing all this food stuff going in, but you've been around the world a few times. Do you have do they have chili dogs in Italy and Rome anywhere that you know of?
They probably do. I don't know. I didn't ever find them when I was over there.
Well, and I
can't. We did find a Thai food place though.
Yeah. Well, I can't imagine an ambassador eating a chili dog. I just don't see that. You guys are kind of, you get it on your outfit. Ambassadors are kind of, we think of a higher level. Anyway, in all seriousness this morning, it's great to have you aboard. And you have a little bit of information about this guy who just became Pope, Leo the 14th. You know him a little bit. Tell us a little bit about the Pope this morning. A lot of people don't know, who this guy was before, but kind of a surprise to some people, I guess. But was it a surprise to you that he became Pope?
Oh, yeah. I never thought I'd see an American Pope. It's such a Eurocentric, Italian-centric program over there. 82% of the popes have come from Italy, and there hadn't been one other than Pope Francis that wasn't from Europe in 1,000 years.
It's interesting now. The last two popes that we've had have come from the Americas, though. One from South America. Yeah. Now here's one coming from North America. What do we know about the new Pope, Pope Leo the 14th?
Well, yeah, we've known him for 30 years. He's a very judicious, careful communicator. He's a very good communicator, but he will be much more steady in the way he communicates than maybe Pope Francis was with all of his zinging one-liners.
When you talk about careful, I'm interested in that word. You use that very carefully. Tell me a little bit about what that means.
He's going to be expressing his thoughts clearly.
Right.
But I don't think he will have any of the off-the-cuff stuff that Pope Francis was pretty famous for.
And as a result, I think he'll be more effective in getting his message out.
When you talk about him, talk a little bit about who he is, what some of the other characteristics are about him a little bit that you know about.
Yeah, he's a really good person. I mean, I got to know him on the board of the school. Our kids went to an Augustinian school, and I got to know him back then, in the mid-'90s, when he was became head of the Midwest Augustinians, and I sit with him at these board meetings every month for a few years, and he's just very good judgment. When he weighs in, people listen, but he's quiet and doesn't always weigh in, and I think that the fact that he ran this organization of the Midwest Augustinians and then ran the organization of all the Augustinian priests in Rome, out of Rome, gives him some kind of skill in terms of organizing and managing people that is sometimes lacking in high-level cardinals and popes.
Ambassador Rooney, the selection of a pope is something that galvanizes the world in terms of attention, whether you're Roman Catholic or not. For people who are not Roman Catholic, when you talk about Augustinian, tell people a little bit about what that means to people who are Roman Catholic, what Augustinian actually should mean to them as they kind of view this from the sidelines.
Well, yeah, there are several orders in the Catholic Church. There's the Franciscans, who are disciples of St. Francis of Assisi, the Dominicans of St. Dominic, the Jesuits of Ignatius Loyola, and the Augustinians are disciples of St. Augustine, who was a very well-known saint. Sometimes they call him the saint for sinners because he was a pretty wild lay guy before he got the call from God to become a priest and ended up being St. Augustine. And he's left a very pastoral mission. The Augustinians are, like the Jesuits, great educators. And they run Villanova. They run the school that our kids went to in Tulsa. They run a couple of schools in Chicago and other places around the country. And they're very, very pastoral, more pastoral maybe than Jesuits, but they're all equally great educators of young people.
And we know, obviously, that the Pope graduated from Villanova, right here in Pennsylvania, about an hour and a half from here. And, he is a guy who also, as I understand it, was in charge of helping to pick the bishops and was brought to Rome by Pope Francis prior to, obviously, him becoming the Pope himself. So he was a fairly powerful man here the last couple of years, but relatively new to being a cardinal as well, right?
That's right. Pope Francis brought him from being head of from Peru. In fact, he was in Peru after he was head of the Augustinians for a while. He was in Peru for about 10, 12 years. And that probably got Pope Francis' attention, being a Latin. And he brought him and put him in charge of the bishops, which was a hugely influential post, and enabled him to meet rapidly a lot of the leading church people, leading clerics, cardinals, and bishops around the world.
Now, you were the ambassador to the Holy See for a while. Am I correct on that?
Yes, 3 years.
And what does that mean exactly? What kind of things do you do as ambassador to the Holy See? And, obviously a representative here for the United States. But when you look at that, a lot of people say, now politics. We talk about politics. And some people have read some things about him that he is not necessarily a big fan of some of the politics of our current president, President Trump. How does that all kind of fit in as an ambassador to the Holy See and kind of being maybe a voice back and forth between a president of the United States and a pope? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, generally, a ambassador anywhere, Holy See or France, does the same basic mission. You're charged by the president with executing the diplomatic mission of the United States and interacting with the host country's diplomatic apparatus. And I did that routinely with the Secretary of State of the Vatican, Holy See. The other thing you do is take care of Americans when they're over there and visitors. And the third thing you do is you communicate and advance understanding of American values. In the case of Rome and the Holy See, I focused on separation of church and state and religious freedom and citizenship. Because, citizenship in Europe is not based on who you are. It's based on who your ancestors were.
Right. Okay, so a little bit different look there. What do you anticipate as you've known this Pope for over 30 years. What do you anticipate in terms of his relationship to the United States? We know that Vice President Vance has already visited with him a little bit, just for a moment. But what do you anticipate the next 3 or 4 years are going to be like in terms of our president? Obviously, the Pope is going to be there for life, but for our president, do you anticipate a good relationship? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think he will probably continue to be critical of Trump about the immigration things, as he was just last week. And that's going to happen with any pope and any cleric, because part of their job is to look after people who are at risk and suffering, and certainly most migrants fall into that category. Overall, the relationship will be fine. I don't know that Trump engaged the Holy See as much as President George W. Bush did in his first term, and I don't know if he'll engage it now.
Well, the president,
he seems to like to conduct his foreign policy by himself.
Oh, he does, yeah. He did come out and say he's very happy that there's an American as a pope, in his time. And I had kind of a weird thought on this, and you got to forgive me for asking this question, but do you think that the selection of an American pope was somehow, in any way, shape, or form, done not to appease Trump, but to kind of meet Trump? Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, but I don't think it would be. If it was done for anything, it would be to oppose Trump.
Okay. All right. So
but I really think what happened there is the Italians couldn't come together over the leading candidate, who's also a friend of mine.
Right.
And you had Bob Prevost here, who had a lot of Latin American experience, had been promoted heavily by Pope Francis.
Right.
Could be counted on to continue a lot of the major threads of Pope Francis's social justice and immigration trends. And so they went to him.
So that makes some sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as a natural...
So he's American, but he's an international American with a lot of Latin American experience.
Yeah, he said, I was in Peru. I like to think of myself as an American. But when you think about, kind of a next natural progression off of the things that St. Francis was, or that Pope Francis was doing, it does make some sense in the way you explain that. Final thoughts this morning on what we need to expect from this Pope, who you've known for over 30 years.
Well, I think we're going to be gratified to see his calm, steady leadership, his ability to express goals and objectives of the church in a much more in a more rational manner, perhaps, than Pope Francis. And I also think we're going to be gratified by his organizational skills. We haven't had a pope that was a really good operator of an enterprise since Pope Paul VI. And Pope Benedict wasn't, and he had scandals. Pope Francis wasn't, and he had scandals. And I think that that Pope Leo will be able to deal with that. I also think they'll be able to confront the challenges presented by social media, AI, all the turmoil that we have in the country right now, in the world right now, which is similar to the preceding Pope Leo.
And again, we keep that idea of the Augustinian being an educator, right? Being a person who's going to let you know a little bit more about what they think about things, and trying to educate the public as well on that, particularly the Roman Catholic public, who obviously are anxious to see what he has to offer. Ambassador Rooney, always good to have you on the show. Thank you so much. It's good to have you back again, and we look forward to talking again in the future.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. Ambassador Francis Rooney, former ambassador to the Holy See, right here on the Gary Sutton Show, telling us a little bit more about the new Pope, and that will reveal itself as he goes forward. And we'll watch it all right here on the Gary Sutton Show on WOYK. We'll take a break. We'll come right back with more news, some very special kinds of segments coming up, and maybe a few more pieces of news you just might have missed. Aaron Anderson still out ahead at 8:35 this morning here on the Gary Sutton Show on WOYK.
He swings here, drives it the other way, down the line in left field. It needs to not slice. It is fair. It short hops the wall in left. Higgins scores. Connell into third as the throw comes in there. And Frankie Tostado revs it up from second. It's an RBI double, and the Revs lead 2-0 here in the third inning.
And that for the Revs game Tuesday night, where they last played. And boy, I'll tell you what, the rain has just been miserable on their schedule. But they are 17-9. They're up 2 games. They're playing a doubleheader today here on WOYK. You can listen at 98.9 FM and 1350 WOYK AM. Starting at 4 o'clock today is the game. It'll be on a little bit before that. But 4 o'clock, they start the doubleheader today. And so you get 2 for the price of 1 tonight here on WOYK. Tune in. We'll have the highlights tomorrow morning, all here on the Gary Sutton Show on OYK.
Absolutely.
Or you can stop out here at the game. The doubleheader coming up, 4 o'clock. And again, hopefully the weather is going to cooperate a bit. It has not been doing that well lately. But let's get 2 wins today. What do you say? Ernie Banks said, let's play 2. Anyway, speaking of the rain, hey, if your spring showers are here, we know that all the time. Are your wipers smearing and making it hard to see? Well, the service department over at Giambalvo Mitsubishi and Giambalvo Kia want you to know that if they streak or chatter or miss spots, it's time to swap them out, man, especially if they chatter. If your windshield wipers are chattering, get it. Top off your washer fluid as well so you're ready for whatever the weather brings. Right now is a great time to do that, and you can do it at Giambalvo Mitsubishi Service Department or Giambalvo Kia Service Department. They're located at the corner of Roosevelt Avenue and Route 30 in York. By the way, might be a good time to get your car right now before the potential tariff increases. Yeah, you can stop down at Giambalvo Mitsubishi and Giambalvo Kia and find out about some great cars they have right now, like the 2025 Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross, starting at $26,230. You've also got the Mitsubishi Mirage G4, the 2024, starting at just $16,965. You can lease, you can buy at Mitsubishi. That's Giambalvo Mitsubishi and Giambalvo Kia right here in York. They have the dealership down there at the corner of Roosevelt Avenue and Route 30. And yes, we talked about Kia as well. You can give them a call today at 717-628-3773 or stop by the service. Give them a call at 717-628-3773, and they are ready to help you today at 1305 Roosevelt Avenue right here in York. They're open 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. right there in the car department. Get down and see the great people down there. They'll talk to you about all of the wonderful deals they have, like the Mitsubishi 2024 that I just got back in February, and I've been so pleased. In fact, I'm driving my car out to Pittsburgh this weekend, and, it's fun to drive a new car. It has that new car smell. It's got all the great things like the keyless entry. I've been entranced by that. Now you say, well, Gary, you're like Rip Van Winkle. I have my old car for 10 years. But I like the idea of getting in and pushing a button. Yeah. And then everything kind of lighting up and doing all the stuff I want to do. I'm not a guy that gets all the bells and whistles, but you might be. The grand reopening at Giambalvo Kia right now, brought to you by Giambalvo Family of Dealerships. They have got a great name in York, in the community for a long time. And when you have something with Giambalvo name on it, you've got quality. And right now, you can check out leasing or buying. Why don't you find out about it? Get on down there, get the pre-tariff car of your choice at Giambalvo Mitsubishi or Giambalvo Kia. They're located right here at the corner of Roosevelt Avenue, Route 30, York. Tell them Gary Sutton sent you today. WOYK News Time is 8:25. What else do we have this morning here, Mr. Chase. I was going to say his last name again, Hilligus, but it's not Hilligus. Yeah.
So, Gary, what's the worst thing that can happen to your brand new car? You drive it out of the lot. What's the worst thing that happens?
You mash it. You don't want to do that.
I was going to say what I hate is when birds do their business on my windows. Right?
I have a group of birds that roost. That wait till I get home in my driveway and they're circling. They're kind of like they're
waiting for you.
Well, they are. They're just sitting there waiting. But you've got a story this morning about birds that are waiting at a place you normally would not expect them.
Yeah, your vacation flight. Let's take a look.
Some passengers may have been using foul language after a pair of pigeons caused their Delta flight from Minneapolis to Madison, Wisconsin to be delayed for nearly an hour. Sound courtesy of Tom Caw and TMX as the birds ruffled feathers on board the plane and left many passengers chirping. A member of the Delta ground crew helped capture the first pigeon flapping around the cabin while a passenger caught the second in his coat. Tom Graham, Fox News.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any truth to it. The birds are saying, "You call these peanuts? You call these nuts?"
These snacks are just not what they used to be.
No. Well, actually, they found that they were inside a Spirit airline. They were trying to get out. They didn't realize that they weren't in a real airline. They were in Spirit. And they said, "Oh, just, you know." Now, yeah, it's like an Alfred Hitchcock movie going bad.
I was gonna say, didn't they do isn't there a horror movie called
The Birds?
Yeah,
The Birds.
yeah. Wasn't it a Stephen
If you've
King
ever
novel?
seen them, you got to watch this movie sometime. I know you're a little younger, Chase.
I
but you
am.
got to
I am
watch
a bit
this
younger.
movie where one or two birds show up, and then there's a couple more. And then there's a few more. And all of a sudden, you can't go outside because the air is black with birds. And it's a typical Alfred Hitchcock film, scary as sin, but it starts out innocently. Isn't it Tippi Hedren or somebody, Mark, that's in that, I think? And yeah.
Was there a Delta flight involved in that movie at all?
There wasn't. No flights involved. It could have probably been staged at Newark. That would have been the great. If the birds were at Newark, that might be the king of all horror films. I don't know. Anything else for us this morning here?
Well, we were talking about snacks on airplanes. I usually like to have candy on an airplane if I'm not trying to sleep, but there's a candy that has something removed that should have been probably a while ago.
When you taste the rainbow with Skittles, you're no longer going to be subjected to titanium dioxide, the ingredients used to make food look whiter. The Make America Healthy Again Commission, chaired by Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr., recently released a report that mentioned additives. It said titanium dioxide is widely used in a range of candies and sauces and may cause cellular and DNA damage. The makers of Skittles, Mars Wrigley, is giving the additive the boot in the U.S. It's already been banned by the European Union. Jill Nato, Fox News.
Now, if I'm mistaken, I'm pretty sure titanium dioxide's in sunscreen. Am I right about that? I believe
might be.
I believe it is.
I have not checked it out. I just worry about it in my candy all the time. Titanium.
Oh yeah, you got to have get
Yeah.
your fill of titanium dioxide when you taste the rainbow.
By the way, don't forget you can stop down today at Augie's Joint at the Central Market, where you can pick up one of the Augie's doggies. Yeah, they got the smaller ones, the really big ones. Dog sauce, house onions, mustard, and cheese. I tell you what, I had one yesterday. I stopped on down, sat and talked with Jewel. Her husband, Brent, was out working yesterday. He's a policeman in his full-time job in Baltimore, but she was making it yesterday. I'll tell you what, she and Levi did a great job of making me an Augie's doggy down there. They're open Monday, or make that Tuesday through Saturday, and it goes 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and they've got some great specials down there right now. You can stop down and check them all out. Like the Salisbury steak burger today. Homemade Salisbury steak, fried onions, mushroom gravy, and provolone on a toasted brioche bun. Don't forget, all their burgers come in beef, turkey, or the bison farm right next door to them. It's right here at Central Market, and it's on the Beaver Street side. Augie's Joint, 5 days a week, Tuesday to Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Stop down and tell them Gary Sutton proudly sent you. When we come back, Aaron Anderson joins us here from he's the CEO of Logos Academy, and we're going to talk a few education issues all here on the Gary Sutton Show on WOYK. It is 8:30. You know what? This is almost too happy.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for a
This guy was maybe the gentlest guy. He was out of Pittsburgh.
I have always wanted.
Now, there was a takeoff on this later on with Eddie Murphy, on Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood, but this was what? Mr. Rogers. Yeah, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Came in his house, took off his shoes, put on his sneakers, put on a cardigan sweater, and for a lot of years did these simple little things and made people happy. And there's a great movie. Tom Hanks plays the part of Mr. Rogers in it, called It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And it's a really interesting movie. I watched it and I loved it. And it's about a guy who came, and it's a true story, a guy who came and wanted to report on Mr. Rogers and wanted to find something bad about him and couldn't. And Mr. Rogers ends up getting this guy to examine his life and how rough it is, and gets him to change his thinking. And this guy has a bad relationship with his father. And at the end, his father gets this cancer, this disease, and they end up coming together. They end up coming together, and Mr. Rogers comes to the house. And I won't ruin it for you, but it's a great story. If you haven't seen it, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
So Mr. Rogers has a specific set of skills?
He does have a specific set of skills that I have acquired over a period of years.
Are there any explosions?
No, there's nothing. No, it is the simplest movie, and in fact, it uses a lot of interesting, what do I want to say, visual metaphors in it. It's just a really nice, quiet little movie to watch. And this guy who's the writer, who's going to write for this magazine, goes there with one idea and comes back with a whole bunch of different thoughts about not only Mr. Rogers, but his family, himself, his life. And it's really good. So I will let it go at that. It's not one that you'd see a lot, but I tell you what, it's worth watching. Check it out. It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And Tom Hanks plays the part of Mr. Rogers. And again, as he always does, manages to capture Mr. Rogers very well. Mr. Rogers is this really just simple guy. And it has all his producers around him, would go visit someone on his set. People would come and visit him on his set, and he always had time for everybody. And so he was as good. It's like Mark. Yeah, it's like Mark. Mark has everybody in here this morning. Yeah, he goes outside and says, anybody want to be a producer? Come on in. And they come in. Like Chase Helwig this morning was in here, and he's done a great job today. I want to compliment Chase.
I appreciate that.
Ryan and Valley stopped by today. They're going to be helping out, but Mark's going on vacation next week. I don't know how I'm going to make it. But, we'll do okay. We'll
manage.
Chase and Mark has been training these people. I've been watching. It's been kind of interesting to watch. But anyway.
It's been an interesting experience.
Well, it should be. As it should be.
Button. Turn the button on.
Yeah, anyway. So we welcome this morning Aaron Anderson, who suggested one of those people, Ryan, who was in here this morning. Aaron, of course, the CEO of Logos Academy, lead pastor at Living Word Church. And he's here this morning with us on the Gary Sutton Show. Good morning, Aaron. How are you?
Hey, Gary, I'm doing great. We're talking Mr. Rogers already. That sounds great.
Well, there you go. And by the way, Aaron is going to be sitting in for me when I go out. So we're breaking news here this morning that Aaron is going to be me when I'm not here. And actually, Aaron's just going to be Aaron. That's all he has to do, because he'll be more interested than I probably am in any day. The only thing I worry about is losing my job when I get back, and Aaron adding another job to his pantheon of things that he does now. As CEO of Logos Academy, lead pastor at Living Word Church, and host of the Gary Sutton Show when I'm away. So great to have you in this morning, my friend. Always good to have you aboard.
It's great. Thanks for lowering. I can't be you, Gary. I mean, who can be Gary Sutton?
Who would want to be? I mean, that's the biggest question. Who would want to be? That's not it. There's a lot of people who would like to be you. I mean, you stand for a lot of great things in this community, and you get involved in a lot of great things in this community, and, you know, just you love your community. I think that's what it's about. You know, the Mr. Rogers neighborhood thing reminded me of sometimes you can be as good as you appear to be. Here's a guy that was just helping to educate children every day on a TV program. But in this movie, it goes far beyond that. He gets people to think about what they're doing. You know, being kind, being thoughtful, listening to people. And I think that's where I kind of want to spend some time with you this morning. As kids are graduating now, what are the things that you want them to be as they come out of Logos Academy? What are some of the lessons that you want them to have? Kind of a Mr. Rogers neighborhood, but in education here.
Well, you know, it's interesting. Just having this conversation this week, Gary, about people we're so suspicious. Everybody's so suspicious of everyone these days. So the idea that there are good people, you know, it's immediately if you meet somebody you think is good, you know, it's like so often it's ingrained in all of us that we want to go digging to find like some dirt, or maybe no one can really be that good. And look, I also believe, you know, as a Christian, that we also all are fundamentally broken in particular ways, and we're impacted by the world that's around us. But I think that's one of the things I'd want our students to really believe is that there are people of goodwill out there in the community, and that when you come together with those people, you really can improve not only your own life and your family, but the lot of people around you. Yeah. So I'm always very eager to see our kids return as adults to our community and come back and invest and do good here. That's one of the hopes of many that I have for our students.
Aaron, how do you teach as a dad, as an educator, as a pastor? How do you teach people not to be gullible, to take goodness as you found it, and yet at the same time to be wary of being duped? There's a fine line in there. There's a no man's land in there that I'd like to find. How do you do that from your particular perspective?
You know, I love Jesus' words on this. Jesus says that he told his followers to be as wise as serpents and as harmless as doves. And you know, Dr. King has this great sermon on that. And I think you look at any of the great virtuous people throughout history, they weren't idiots. I mean, they weren't fools. What they were people who had developed and cultivated a lot of virtue and character in their own lives, and you saw that in the way they interacted with people. They lived it out. It's who they were. It was part of their being. And I would, you know, the things they did, their doing, if you will, just flowed out of their being. I think the cultivation of virtue actually it develops wisdom, if you will. So there's a great tradition called the wisdom tradition. You know, wisdom is that ability to be able to interact with people, and I think to be able to read, to sense, am I interacting with somebody who's a person of goodwill here, or am I, you know, is this person somebody who maybe doesn't have the character that's trustworthy, and I should be a little suspicious of this people? I think wisdom has some, but I think wisdom also is charitable. So it tends to give people the benefit of the doubt until you prove me otherwise.
You know, Mr. Rogers, and again, we're using him this morning as we led into this segment. Mr. Rogers had the ability to be successful, and yet he lived very plainly. He did have an apartment in New York, and he lived in Pittsburgh. He lived very plainly, but he had the ability to say, okay, there's hope, that you can be a decent person. You can go through life with simple kinds of good characteristics and not be taken advantage of necessarily. Use that as strength. And that's something that gives me hope. Your thoughts on that?
No, I think that's right. I think it's when we underestimate the value of virtue, and I'm using that word specifically.
Okay.
That's just good character development. You know, when you think about virtue is strong. It's not weak. That's, I think, one of the great risks we face in our current moment is to believe that goodness and courage, and that those are weak traits. They're not weak traits. Those, I would argue, those are strong traits. It's actually very easy to be suspicious. It's very easy to go towards violence. It takes a lot more courage and mettle in a human being to be loving, to be kind, to show restraint, to show humility. When you think about any of the great virtues of history or of the Christian tradition, they take time to cultivate, and I would look at the people who have those virtues and say, man, those are really strong, really strong people. Specifically, I think of someone like Dr. King. I mentioned him. How much strength did it take to not move towards violence, to react towards racism and towards, accusations? It takes a real virtue and strength to be a person of good character. And ultimately, my model as a Christian is Jesus. The Bible says that even when he was being falsely accused, he went quietly. He didn't feel the need to have to defend himself.
One of the things that was interesting about this movie, It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, and the story of Mr. Rogers, but it wasn't really about him. It was about this guy who went, and you said it in the beginning, he went to write a story like a hatchet job. This guy was used to writing hatchet jobs on people in magazines, and he goes to find out, what the low part of Mr. Rogers' life was. Mr. Rogers says, listen, I've had some down times. I've had some parts where I've not been a good person, I don't think. And yet his idea of not being a good person, someone else's, might have been very different. But the bottom line was, in trying to find out about someone else and do a hatchet piece on him, he ends up finding out about himself and finding out how good this guy really is. This guy, he would walk onto a set, and this guy drove his producers crazy, because he'd get done with a segment, and someone would come to visit on the set, and he'd get entranced in a conversation with them, where he was talking with the child and the family. He always had time for children. And he didn't let celebrity get in the way of being a real person and letting that goodness shine through in whatever moment he was caught. And so this idea of being a good person was really a strength for him. And he never let celebrity get in the way of that in any moment, it didn't seem.
Right. Well, when you look at that, you just said it there in passing. He was obviously a guy who was present to people. He was with them, available for anyone. And when you look at that, like what's underneath that, I'd say he's a guy who obviously understood. He was a Presbyterian minister.
Yes.
I know that tradition would teach love of God and love of neighbor. And I mean, when you live that way, when you're a person who seeks to love God and seeks to honor God with your life, and then that's going to look like in a way we can't always see like what's going on under the surface. What I can see is how you treat other people. That's going to tell me everything I need to know about character. Are you available to people? Are you kind? Are you good? Do you go out of your way? Are you unselfish? And that's clearly what that showed. And that's character. I mean, that takes real time to develop. And it's part of what made Mr. Rogers, I think, so attractive. I'd love to see a resurgence of us holding up as models and exemplars people like Mr. Rogers who are kind and good and loving. I keep hearing people talk about those things as though they're weakness, and they're not. Those are very strong traits.
Well, you know what that goes into, and a friend of mine, Todd, just sent me a note on this. It kind of reminded me. It goes into courage. The idea of having the courage of your convictions in every moment. And that's what I think Mr. Rogers says. And there's a piece that Todd just sent me, a great quote from Norman Vincent Peale. It said, "The greatest of all virtues is courage. For when courage goes, so go all others." You think about having the courage to do the right thing in every moment that you're living. And even when you fall down sometimes, having the courage to get back up and do it again, that is incredible. And, you put courage as an umbrella over all of what we talked about this morning. You got a pretty interesting, neat guy. And if you haven't seen the movie, It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Go see it. Mr. Rogers, and a great topic here this morning. Aaron, I really appreciate you developing that with me. Thank you so very much for the conversation today.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, my friend.
It always is, especially when you're on with us here on WOYK. Beautiful postscript. Thanks so much, my friend. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch up with you next week, all right? Thanks so much.
Sounds great.
Aaron Anderson, who will be sitting in for me, by the way, when I'm away. He will be the host of WOYK, the Gary Sutton Show, right here on the main street of York. We'll be back with more right after this. It is 8:49. sounds like the A-Team. No? Close. Has some letters. A is one of them.
This is true.
Surrounded by SW&T. SWAT.
It is SWAT.
Yeah. I screwed it up. The A-Team. The A-Team sounded a lot like this theme, as I recall. A lot of these themes sounded like a lot about these themes. Yeah, that's what they do. They have that sense of urgency, that sense of drama, that sense of momentary stuff going on. And we have it all right here for you on the Gary Sutton Show, because yesterday we didn't get a chance to have our TV shows themes going in. And so today we didn't want to cheat you, so we put it in there, which means we cheated you out of something else, but that's okay. All right, all here on the Gary Sutton Show on WOYK. I do want to remind you that this hour has been brought to you by Augie's Joint. Exactly right, Augie's Joint. You hear a train in the background going through right now? They're heading to Augie's Joint, I think. But
must be.
Yeah, Augie's Joint is right up here at the Central Market. And Jewel and Brent is Augie, by the way, ready to help you enjoy some of the greatest food you're ever going to have. They got some great sandwiches, like this week's burger specials, a Salisbury steak burger. Check this out now. Just close your eyes for a moment. Homemade Salisbury steak, fried onions, mushroom, gravy, and provolone. That sounds good. Just kind of melting over the burger on a toasted brioche bun. That's where we say it in France. This week's hot dog special is the 5 Points. All beef hot dog topped with sauerkraut, prosciutto from Barry Orchard, which is right there at the Central Market, horseradish mustard, and balsamic glaze served on a brioche top slice roll. Now, don't forget, all the burgers come in beef, turkey, or the Bison Farm, which is right next door there. And we're going to be previewing the Bison Farm on Monday. They're going to be a new advertiser on our show. I eat Bison Burger all the time and love it. Now, Augie's is open 5 days a week from Tuesday to Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Or you can go in and ask for an Augie's Doggy, one of my favorites, which is the chili dog. Dog sauce. No beans in the chili sauce, which is the way to go. House onions, mustard, and cheese. Fantastic. They got so many other different kinds of burgers. They've also got the walking crunch, the tater tots. They got cheese steaks. They got it all right there at Augie's Joint, proud sponsor of our show here in the 8 o'clock hour. And they're open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. right here at the Central Market in New York on the Beaver Street side. Check them out today, tomorrow. Anytime's a good time.
Did you try my suggestion?
I don't know what it was. I forget.
Celery salt.
Oh, celery salt. I didn't even pass that on to them yet.
Very specific suggestion there.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it. I have to be honest.
You should.
It went in one ear and kind of.
That's going to be your Christmas.
You're going to be on me on that for a while.
Christmas gift.
Christmas morning, getting a giant
celery
thing of celery salt.
Yeah. I was just saying to my wife the other day, do we have any celery salt, hon? So I will do. He'll be, because if I don't, he's going to be relentless.
Keep asking you.
Yeah, he's screaming at me from over here. He doesn't have a mic right now. He's screaming at me. So, any final stories today, Chase, that we need to get out there?
Well, I'll tell you what you don't want in your celery salt, Mark, is insects, right? And it turns out there might be a new insect that can end up in your celery salt. Let's take a look.
Owners are encouraged not to bug out, but to watch out for evidence of termites on their property. 2 different termite species are breeding, creating a hybrid termite with colonies confirmed in South Florida. Researchers at the University of Florida say Formosan subterranean termites and Asian subterranean termites are coexisting and mating with each other. The lead author of the study called it not great news that the 2 most destructive termites in the world are hybridizing in Florida. Maps from the study show a large presence of both species of the destructive insects in southeast Florida, as well as the Tampa area. CJ Papa, Fox News.
Steve Shetter, are you hearing this from TES Pest? He was on with us yesterday. Steve loves these kind of things.
But you
know what? It's bad enough we got termites in our own country. Now we got them breeding with people from other continents. Termites from other continents. What's next? I mean, this is like a horror story. This might be another movie to come out soon. Who knows?
I also love how their spokesperson said it was, quote, not great news.
Yeah,
that 2 different species of termites are mating to create a new life form. That's all I had to say.
People are using that now. Like when people say something's bad, it doesn't suck. Well, you say it's not great news. Well, no, it is bad news. I mean, come on.
Very well phrased.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're just kind of, moving away from that. So termites. I mean, just the idea of termites. The idea.
Disgusting.
Crossbreeding termites, inbreeding termites. I don't care what kind of termites. Termites are bad.
Something better to think about today's food holiday.
Today's National
holiday?
Biscuit Day.
Oh, biscuits are good.
Oh my gosh. There's nothing better than good biscuits and
Now,
gravy.
they have to be a little crispy on the outside where you have a little texture, and then the inside, nice and soft. Little butter, little honey maybe. Oh, I tell you what, I'm just sitting here. I'm going to have breakfast.
There's so much food talk today. I'm going to have to, I haven't eaten yet, so there's so
You'll
much
get used to our show. There's food talk all the time.
I got my Pop-Tarts over there. Mark's teasing me, but
yeah, you left behind part of a apple fritter. Yeah. Yeah.
I got it. I was up early this morning. I got to have my Monster.
Chase.
I don't drink coffee.
Chase, don't call me Hilligus, call me Hellwig. With us here today on the Gary Sutton Show. Mark McKenzie training him. He'll be responsible for a review afterward. And anyway, it's been great having him in today. Great having all of you today. Tomorrow, Ted Check, the author of Saving the Beast, will be with us, former journalist and author. He'll have some stories for us tomorrow. We'll also have Kevin Smith back from Rome to find out about what that trip was like for Kindness Worldwide. We'll also, that'll be at 7:05. Grassi ATM, we'll talk a little bit about wellness tomorrow and getting into some of the things with your mental wellness and mental health. That'll be on at 7:35. And then at 8:05, Jim McClure, York County historian, with a brand new story about something happening out there in history. And finally, Dr. Nick Pandelides, wherever he is, he'll be with us tomorrow here at 8:35 on the Gary Sutton Show. Thanks to all of you. Stay tuned for the Revs today. A doubleheader coming up in Hagerstown today, all here on WOYK. I'm Gary Sutton. It is 9 o'clock.